Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The Forbes Middle East CEO Forum is moving on to its second panel discussion entitled The Spirit of Enterprise, and it is super to have you back with us. May I please invite Nadine and her panelists to join me on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them.
Thank you.
Now, as they move into place, for any of you just joining us, we are with our moderator this morning, Nadine Hani, financial expert and anchor for the Al Arabiya news channel based in Dubai, where she presents and co-produces the financial news program Al Aswaq Al Arabiya. I'm now going to hand you over to Nadine and enjoy our second panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Baxter. Thank you. Two years ago, the Arab youth revolted against poverty, unemployment, and the lack of social equality. The economic growth that had been witnessed in past years did not generate enough jobs for the growing labor force. And as a result of the uprising itself, the situation has got even worse. The International Labour Organization forecasts an unemployment rate among the youth in the Middle East of 26.4% in 2012. This can be compared to 12.7%, the global average. Government programs alone will not create the needed jobs. There is no disagreement among proponents of SMEs. They not only help in providing jobs for the youth, but also promote the diversification of the highly oil-dependent economies of the Gulf. Yet, starting up a new business is no easy task. More and more people are on a path to business ownership, and the online environment is allowing individuals to transform ideas of business startups into a more tangible objective. But even if people have the skills and determination to set up and run an enterprise, startup businesses still face many challenges, from the weak financing to government bureaucracy. Many complain of outdated and cumbersome laws and regulations and weak corporate governance. Many entrepreneurs lack the initial knowledge of how to start up a business. We will be discussing this issue. The title of this panel is The Spirit of Enterprise, and we will try to provide practical advice and real-world information of the processes which are needed to start a small or soon-to-be big business. We have with us our panelists now. I'm going to introduce them in the order in which they are seated. Next to me is Ms. Hala Badri. She's the Executive Vice President, Brand Communications at DO. We have with us Professor Christopher Abraham, Senior Vice President and Head of the Dubai campus at the SP Jain School of Global Management. Also with us is Mr. Abdul Basit Al-Janahi, CEO of Dubai SME. From Qatar, we have Mr. Fahad Al-Muhannadi, GM of Qatar Electricity and Water, and Mr. Richard Pudner, who he is the Group CEO of Emirates NBD. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here with us on this panel. Please, if you have any questions for our panelists, I will be asking you later on to raise your hand, and we will pass on a microphone for you to ask your question. Let us start with you, Ms. Hala. Basically, I think before we discuss entrepreneurship in general, let us introduce our audience to the programs that you are doing at DO, and what is your experience with entrepreneurship in the region before we start discussing in detail the challenges faced and how we can make things better.
What we did at DO is that, first of all, as a telecom company, we do offer customized solutions for SMEs. These are plans that help them set up their businesses, or it basically fulfills their ICT needs at a very reasonable cost. In our interactions with these SMEs, we realized that a lot of them have a need for support, a support network within the community. And what we decided to do is that we said, okay, let's look at an innovative platform that would actually help these entrepreneurs bring their ideas to life. A lot of them complained that, yes, there is financial investors, there are incubators in this region or in the UAE in particular, but there are certain things or certain challenges that we would like to overcome. So we listened to them, and after extensive research, we came up with a reality TV show This was a first in the region, a platform that we introduced. We partnered up with renowned organizations, Sony Pictures, Dubai One, etc., to bring about a TV show that actually invites entrepreneurs within the UAE to come and present their ideas to a judge of panels. Now, Abdul Basit was also one of the members of the judging panel. We invited them to come forward with their applications and ideas, and we had close to 2,000 applications. These ranged from people from the age of 18 to 63. The ideas were varied. They covered ICT, they covered retail, different services. It was amazing. These were then shortlisted to 100 ideas that came forward, and the judges selected the top 10 that went on to this program. Now, this program, we believe as DO that it was important to launch it because yes, there are a lot of areas within the ecosystem that's covering, let's say, financial investment or network or incubation, but a lot of these people wanted to be heard. Now, we put a prize money for this, cash in terms of 1 million dirhams, but it doesn't stop there. This is not what they need. It's not just the financial investment. What they actually require is a support network in addition to this. So we also offered them services in terms of advertising advice. We offered them services in terms of consultation with some of the people in the financial industries or other industries, in addition to providing them with office space. All of this helps towards them becoming more interested and creating a competitive environment for them. And I think the importance of the role of the private sector comes here. So the government alone cannot do the entire support network. I think a lot of the companies and even individuals who own large companies, and I'm talking about people who own family businesses here, who have been entrepreneurs, let's say back in the 60s and 70s, who've got a vast experience, whose network has grown to provide a mentorship to these people.
They have to play that role, otherwise you won't have the mentors needed for these young people. From your experience, definitely you have felt what are the requirements of those young people, young entrepreneurs. So I will be getting back to you with that. But we have with us Professor Abraham. He is from the academic side, and I know as well that at your School of Management, you have also had a program that encourages entrepreneurship. Let's talk about that, but leave the issue of encouraging entrepreneurship till later. I want to ask you about that in detail. So tell us right now about the program that you launched in that space.
Okay, let me clarify. This is in my earliest stint with one of India's top engineering colleges called the National Institute of Technology, where a very unique state-sponsored program was launched along with the college. This is an engineering college, so you do 4 to 5 years of engineering studies, and most often you would find the natural course of movement towards jobs. And we wanted to arrest that and move from taking jobs to creating jobs. So a very unique initiative was brought in called the TREC STEP, which was a nice acronym for the entrepreneurship program. And the college was housed in a very large facility of about 800 acres. So we allocated about 200 acres for building what Hala mentioned as an incubation center. And a very interesting program. So after a student finishes his engineering studies, be it in electrical or mechanical or automotive, by the end of his 3rd and 4th year, he presents a business plan. So there's a whole marketing that goes internally to ensure that you get adequate number of people interested in doing this. And then the whole process involved in the business proposal, the vetting of the proposal, the financials, the project feasibility, market strategy, so on and so forth. And then the best 12 for every year are selected. We had about 300 plus incubation, centers, if I may call that. And within that, each year there would be about 12 budding entrepreneurs who would be selected. And they would be given not just the seed capital once the project is approved. They would also be given access to private venture. They would be given access to state assistance, because this was also partially funded and assisted by the state government. And we would also provide marketing support. I mean, these are the big challenges that an entrepreneur would face. First would be the seed capital, then would be the marketing, then would be the working capital. So probably banks again play a critical role there. So getting these partners together, and today as I speak, this is almost now 20 years work in progress. And I think they have successfully crossed 1,600 plus entrepreneurs, many of them who made it, some of them unfortunately didn't make it. But the plan was to keep them for 3 years at the College Incubation Center, and once they're ready to fly, we move them out to be on their own, giving them access to bank facilities, giving them access to the marketing, giving them access to all the requirements so they move on. And I think that in retrospect, if you look at it, it's an extremely well thought out plan. Because yes, there were failures, not that everybody succeeded, but I think by and large, it was an experiment in success because it brought in different factors. Because if you look at the current entrepreneurial climate, what is seriously, let's say, challenging is lack of access to networks. So people need networks where they can understand other entrepreneurial ideas. People have lack of access to facilities. So in terms of support, in terms of finances, whatever, people lack role models and mentors. So that's again a very important challenge. One other thing that came in assistance to us was the organization called TIE, T-I-E, the Indus Entrepreneurs Network, which again supports global entrepreneurial initiatives, and their job is basically sharing the good news of creating value rather than just becoming a person who does a job. And I think that experiment has proved extremely successful, and in retrospect, I would say it is something worth emulating in other parts of the world.
Mr. Janahi, it is basically the bread and butter of what you do.
Yes.
You at Dubai SMEs, you are an incubator, so basically you look for good ideas and you work with them. Tell us a little bit more of what you do. What kind of ecosystem do you supply?
You just, I think, put the right words in terms of it's a small ecosystem that we've created. We've been operating for the past 10 years, and the story started that in 2002, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed have seen that there is a boom coming in, and he wanted to increase the participation of UAE nationals in the economic boom that the country was seeing. So we've looked at the needs or the things which are missing in the ecosystem as per the plan that was set for Dubai, and how we can increase the participation of nationals in entrepreneurship, because then everybody was, and I am one of them, and maybe Hala too, we were engineered at school really to be employees. And the government really, and I think this is the situation today, cannot keep on recruiting and creating jobs, and we just keep on putting fat really. So we've looked at the environment, and we've looked at what Dubai was trying to do when it comes to the strategic plan, from creating the clusters and what is happening in the financial sector with the IFC. Then we looked at vehicles that will help entrepreneurs succeed or make their journey a bit easier.
Sorry, are you a 100% government entity? Are
Yes.
you backed by the government?
Yes,
and
we
how
are.
much capital do you have to spend on that?
We started with 50 million dirhams, but today we were talking at more than $500 million really, with assets and endowments that have been allocated for us. So we started with so we take care of actually the entrepreneur from starting their business up to even sometimes closing their business or going through the whole cycle, because you have to look at it entirely. So we start from financing them as angel and VC. We incubate them. We give them access to government procurement. We train them, network them, and even appraise the good ones. And we've been doing this for the past 10 years. And actually, if they do not succeed, we make their exits a bit easier from business. And in case if they want to start their businesses again or start something else, we make it easier for them. So we want to remove the stereotype of failure, you're doomed, you should die or commit suicide. And I think that's the cultural change that we've been trying to do. And when it comes to the culture again, we've run a lot of programs for the community to praise entrepreneurship.
We will get back to that. By the way, what is the success rate so far? of the ideas that are
you're-
presented? How much of them actually make it? and
Sev-
start-
seven, I, they, 30% make it. So out of 30%, actually there is only a 10% who make a big bang. And I think we should, as communities, as businesses, as government, we should be reasonable demanding from them in terms of how successful they can be. And these are the statistics. And out of 100, or actually out of 1,000, you might find one that really becomes something that Forbes want to talk about, for instance.
Okay.
But the rest of them, we should not ignore them. So going back to the ecosystem, we've run programs for the communities, for the schools and universities, which we do it in partnership with Do, and Khalid did not mention this. And thank you, Do, for all the support. And I think what Do has been doing really is great, because we cannot keep on doing this on our own.
You cannot do it alone. You need
Exactly.
the support of so many entities around
So
you.
we run just one thing, the Young Entrepreneurs Competition. We do it
Yes.
every year in a shopping mall. We started with 100 students. Last year we've reached to around 2,800 students. Cumulative, you're talking about close to 8,000 students that we have embedded entrepreneurship in their minds.
Mr. Fahd, you run a huge company, Qatar Electricity and Water, and you have huge training programs as well. But as was a little bit mentioned earlier, we are raised in this part of the world to become a government employee. Like most of us aspire to getting a great government job that pays a lot of money and has limited working hours, and we don't have that in us. Can you give us a little bit an overview of what you are facing with those people that enroll in those training programs that you do at the company?
I think I might have a different opinion than who think that there is a failure on finding the right people for the right job. I feel that the success we are making is not what we expect, but it's moving in the right direction and it's getting better with time. I think the education system that we are having now, and that the result of it will come in a decade, will bring more talented employees. So I don't think that what's happening, I'm talking about the private sector, which the expectation is higher than a government sector. I think the success is good. We have to build on it. Year by year, we see better results. I think it's a goal that we have no choice but to achieve. And there is a great government support in a sense that we must make it happen. We must make it happen correctly. And the result has been well measured. And I wouldn't say I'm satisfied what we are achieving, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. It's getting better with time. We wish that in the future it's much better than what we achieve now. But let me talk about the private sectors and how it's transforming from a government to the private sector, and what's going to mean in the future. I think there is a vision, and which I share, is that the government have to privatize most of their entity. If you look at the power and water sector, is doubling every decade. The demand for electricity and water is doubling. It's about 8
Excuse
to 10%.
me, I think we need to raise the voice a little bit. I can barely hear Mr.
Okay.
Fahd. Yes, please.
Sorry. And this sector, if you look at it, let's say in a decade or 2 decades from now, this sector, and I will be talking about Qatar and most of the Gulf countries following that, is being privatized, and especially from the production facilities. And people would say where we are getting to. And I think the first stage, which I'm talking about, is the next decade. We started a decade ago or 2 decades ago, and in a decade, you will see that that sector is fully privatized. And what happens in the decade after is that this business will be break down to small businesses, and there will be many of the supporting companies that support this service, whether it's directly or indirectly. And I think the point you are raising about creating an opportunity, the power and water sector will take a longer time. But when it brings the result to the market, it's going to be a very effective result, because it's going to bring a huge sector into the private sector that create business for all these small business opportunity.
معلش لأن الميكروفون مش عم بيسمع كثير أحسن تحكي على هيك.
So I believe that a lot of people, if they are looking for a quick win now, and these sectors, it's building to be a sector that's going to be, even if you talk about in the future that, I don't know whether this wording will be understood fully, that there is what we call the merchant market sector for the power. And this is that the power can be sold anywhere from any production facility at any time. And then the vehicle to take the power from one point to the point, another point, is done by another private sector. So there is a lot of business opportunity that is going to be created by privatizing the power and water sector.
You are saying that there are so many opportunities out there, but you need the people who have the vision and who can spot those opportunities and actually do something about them.
I think the vision is there, and also as the market moves, people will learn possibly that they will revise their vision and understand what needs to be done for the following decade. The challenge is, as you move along, and if you look at the power and water sector, I think it's guaranteed that this sector is doubling in 10 years. And in another year, it might double again. And the growth in the countries, especially in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Emirates, Kuwait, and all the GCC countries, is all positive, and it is at least 6% plus. That market will create business opportunity and will create job opportunity. So I think this sector, a lot of people look at it still as still a government sector. And I think the more it continues to be a government sector, the more damages it will cause for a future opportunity. So I think countries who have already privatized part of that business, and I think Abu Dhabi have done a lot in that field, yes, have gained the result, and countries who are following will see the result in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Richard Pudner, basically our panelists were so kind as they didn't mention a lot the problem of financing for entrepreneurs, and that banks don't deal with half of the SMEs out there because they are not eligible for getting financing from banks. Now I know that at ENBD you are doing something about that. We'd like to hear what is it, what is the program that you are launching, but can you give us a little bit of a background on how difficult is it for a bank to take the decision to finance an entrepreneur or an SME when the business idea is still in that gray area, it hasn't yet succeeded?
Can you hear me? Is this on?
Microphone, I think we still need to raise the voice a little bit.
Yeah? Okay. Thanks, Nadine. Yes, I mean, banks tend to get slightly beaten up in the SME space, and certainly in the entrepreneur space, because it's a difficult area for banks to finance. Unfortunately, you get historically in the catch-22 of applying for a bank loan as a small company. You need 3 years track record to get your foot in the door, which is a little bit self-defeating if you're trying to grow your business, etc. So I think, though, things have changed. Listening to the conversation also earlier on this morning it's about job creation here in the Gulf. It's about job creation actually in the UK, if you want to go back to the West now and to see what's going to happen there, I think, regarding entrepreneurship. So how do we help as a bank help create those jobs? I think there's a limit to how many people can go into government jobs. We've seen that. There's a limit to how many government jobs there can be. So there has to be an outlet somewhere else. The banking industry in the UAE takes what we would call CSR initiatives very seriously in trying to help entrepreneurs. Emirates MBD have had a program in place, Altamur, for the last 14 years to help UAE nationals in establishing businesses and becoming entrepreneurs and becoming successful through that, creating employment. I think if you look at the statistics in the UAE now, there's over 200,000 SME companies. I think that's probably about 80% of the workforce, actually. And out of those 200,000 SMEs, 180,000 are sort of more on the micro level, employing less than 20, 25 people. So if you look at what's happened in the UAE over the last 5-7 years or so, it's been very much government-led growth, looking at infrastructure builds, etc., which took the model away, I think, in Dubai slightly from the traditional model of trade, manufacturing, tourism, logistics, and now we're going back to that model. So I think the foundation of the 200,000 plus SMEs in the UAE is going to be the future growth engine for the UAE, and banks have a duty to support that industry. I think, or that segment of business. I think what you're going to see over the next few months, and I think there are one or two people in the audience that heard me speak at an Arab business gathering. Banks are very focused on how we can help the SME industry now. No, we're not going to necessarily be venture capitalists for entrepreneur startups. That's why we've got a lot of different parts of the infrastructure here to help with that.
It needs a different setup, definitely.
Sorry?
It needs a different setup.
Well, we've heard,
yes.
30% success rate, 10%. That's not our job, the way I see it, although we have to be probably more in that space. But my job and the bank's job and Emirates NBD's responsibility is to support the UAE economy, and that is to support the SMEs. We've seen a lot of change, I think, in banks' approach to SME business. Probably a lot of people out there maybe not believe it, but there are a number of initiatives now that are coming through from various banks around the UAE to support SME-specific businesses. It's a vital part of the economy. We can't afford to ignore it.
Mr. Padner, quick question. I know that in Lebanon, for example, there's an initiative called Badr, and it is backed by some kind of government help. I'm not sure whether they guarantee the loans granted to entrepreneurs or whether the central bank gives the banks some incentive through the reserve requirement or other to give loans to those entrepreneurs. Yeah. Do you have any kind of government backing that helps or encourages banks to finance SMEs and entrepreneurs?
Not at the moment. I mean, I know this has been talked about in government circles, and I think it's also talked about, if you follow what's happening in the UK as well, of government stimulating lending back to the smaller businesses. Yes. I think it's an important part of the circle. If that was in place, not all of it, maybe a percentage of guarantee or whatever, to encourage banks to lend to SMEs, I think that's a hugely important development in the UAE and will help growth enormously. Having said that, the banks have got to get a lot smarter in how we help small companies with their working capital flows.
I have a general question before starting another round of specific questions. If we think about the success rate, I can only think of Maktoub, that really made it big and was acquired by Yahoo in the region as a company that really has been a big success. Can you convince us that we have the right talent out there, that we have the right ideas, that we can have several Maktoubs? I don't know, who would like to answer that?
I mean, we should, again, we go back, we should be taking it easy on them. Not every company can be Maktoub. And yes, it went in the media, everybody talked about it, but we have to see how Maktoub deal happened really when it comes to private equity coming in and taking it to the next step and to create the bank. How many banks can we create? So things like Maktoub, I think there are a lot of companies out there. I can give you an example of an initiative we've run called the SME 100. And when we went to some of the policymakers and to the stock market, and we were asking them, why can't as a medium-sized, profitable, double-digit growth company be listed? They said, we don't know if we have companies who are worth being listed. And this is where you create the big bang and the Maktoubs and the Yahoos and the Facebooks. So we went back to the drawing board. We went back to the banks, to the free zones, to all the entities which are responsible in registering and being partners with these SMEs. And we got 2,500, 3,000 companies, evaluated them, got the 100. Then when we dig deeper into these companies, we saw there is a huge gap when it comes to governance, systems, management styles that needs to be mission, vision, plans of growth, that I think there is a huge gap. And that's why I don't want to talk about financing, because there is a responsibility on the banking sector, but there is another responsibility on small medium enterprises. And out of that study, really, we've discovered that even the environment in the GCC states specifically, because we are a non-tax environment, this does not encourage medium-sized or small medium-sized and create that culture of governance and keeping their books. So it becomes their journey of going to the banks easier to finance them. So there is a huge gap in terms of understanding, and this is one of the things that we are doing. So one, taxation. Two, there is a huge non-banking transactions happens between these businesses. So an SME lends to another SME at a 4%. What's the point of going to a bank, take it at 9%? And they do it quick. So I think these are the things that we have out of a study, and we've shared it with the banks.
Yes.
And the banks are really looking at it in terms of how to develop their products and services to them.
Professor Abraham, when I think of when we said Maktoum and Yahoo, I mean, definitely, if you want to think of Silicon Valley, it made it because you have the Stanfords of the world, and you have a huge R&D, and you have the spirit of entrepreneurship. There's a lot of R&D on both levels of universities and corporate as well, the big corporations that spend a lot. So my question is, what needs to be done on an academic level? First of all, to instill that spirit of entrepreneurship, because you cannot, a person at 40 years old, ask him to become an entrepreneur overnight. It has to be like he has to have it in him. So what are you doing about that?
Yeah, let me first share the European experience, a very interesting experiment in progress. About 9 European countries, Norway, Sweden, Lithuania, Estonia, UK, and a few others, have joined together on this initiative. It's very similar to what Janet just spoke about in terms of encouraging the spirit of enterprise among school children. So rather than creating jobs or telling them that you have to build your education towards a career, you could become a business person. And there are 2 levels to it. One is promoting the idea of entrepreneurship at the school system. And they've actually started it from grade 4, grade 5 onwards, showcasing great stories of success. And as we speak, I'm reminded of something, it's a YouTube sensation now, of an 8-year-old entrepreneur. So that's where the world is leading. And if we could get that spirit of enterprise at the school system, rather than creating or preparing them for a career and then moving forward to, making value for society. The second challenge here, I mean, the Silicon Valley experience is something unique because that's an ecosystem that's developed around academic institutions. I think Dubai has a very unique opportunity, and Qatar to some extent, Kuwait to some extent, because of these unique educational clusters that are being built. So what we now need to do is get together, create that platform for, as I shared in my earlier exposition about how the government, the industry, and the academia could collaborate together. We create the common platform. Now what DO is doing with Dubai SME is a classic example of that collaboration. What we need to bring in is the academic input. So here you have a corporate entity, here you have a government-backed entity, and then you have an academic entity. So it's a 3-fold collaboration that can work wonderfully well, where you create that. Another interesting thing, and I'm inspired by this because we had this showcased at our own campus at the academic city, the success story of Fredge. Now Fredge is a classic success story in the local milieu. And we ensured that every single student who is looking at an entrepreneurial career gets an opportunity to hear that success story. Just Falafel is another classic story. The number of these local stories that are coming up, and let me put that on record, we need a lot more exposure for these entrepreneurs, these success stories to percolate to the college level, to the university level, and to the school level. Once that gets across, people get an idea, hey, I don't need to be working for somebody, I could start something and become equally successful. And I think the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Steve Jobs, the Larry Pages, I think are the trailblazers in this area. Another very important thing which I'd like to share, and I think it's very contextual, this year, and I think it happens every year, I'm proud to say that the Al Tamimi Group, which is one of the local big industries, runs a big idea competition. And this is primarily for university and college students, where they ask them to submit their business plans, their business proposal, very serious competition, unlike others. And I'm first of all proud to say that this year's winner was our own student. We also won the Institute of the Year award for having the largest number of applications for the business plan. And it's a very, very thoroughbred process where there are a set of distinguished jury who sit across, vet through the entire proposal, goes through, I think, about 6 or 7 rounds, I'm not too sure, but it goes through a whole series of rounds.
Yes.
And finally, 2 people get selected. One of them, of course, bags the big prize, which is as big as $1 million. And they get to be supported by Al-Tamimi for about 3 years. And I think moving forward, these kind of initiatives, if they're taken up in the larger context, I think would be the way to go for the Middle East region.
Ms. Hala, you have had a lot of experience in dealing with those young people who applied for that program that you did actually. And I'm interested to know, first of all, what kinds of ideas did you have? How serious were they? What did they lack? Where did they need help? Did they know how to start, how to put up a business plan? How did they present themselves? I'd like to understand, give us a little bit of background on whether we have the needed talent in the market, because this is like showcases the talent that is out there, and what are the major challenges that they are facing?
Great. First of all, like I said at the beginning, the ideas that came through the entrepreneur program were varied. There were over 100 kind of ideas that cover the ICT industry, technology, trade, fashion, you name it. So it was extremely varied because we live in a cosmopolitan culture and because we opened it to both residents and UAE nationals. So you can imagine the amount of ideas that come from different parts of the world that they see an opportunity here and they want to set up. When they came, some of the ideas did not meet the criteria, so we had to send them back, educate them, and tell them you need to do more extensive work on your financial, or you need to look at your idea in presenting XYZ, your marketing or your advertising. It has to be the whole package. So the whole thing was also an educational kind of process for them as well. In terms of presentation, we were discussing earlier with Abdul Basit that there were a lot of people who've had great ideas, wonderful ideas, but when it came to presenting themselves and pitching the idea, they actually failed. And these are the areas that they need some kind of like skill set that they require to take their ideas to the next step. In terms of challenges that they face, or in general, the entrepreneurs that we came in touch with was, first of all, a platform for them to be listened to. And then once they have kind of an idea that has taken off, what are the support systems that are available to them to go back to? A lot of them came and said, yes, now I've got the financial thing, my business plan has got through, I've started the business, but I don't have a backup. Now, if I want to expand my business, how do I do that? Where do I go?
They need help all along the way.
Exactly. So it is a process that we need to be there. We need to create an ecosystem that actually says, this is how you establish, this is how you tackle it, and this is how you make sure that you're profitable and you're continuing. A lot of these businesses have very short-term plans, so they want to take off, they become very eager in establishing the business, but it stops there. We spoke about some of the businesses that went outside this region, and Just Falafel is a great example because they started back in 2007 out of Abu Dhabi, and today they have 500,000 fans on Facebook, for example. They completely use technology and the social media to take their ideas outside this region. And we are very good at adopting technology, but we are not very good at using technology innovation to move us through. And this is something that needs to be looked at.
Mr. Fahd, I'd like to ask you here, does it have to be about technology? I mean, these days, a lot of people are making use of the online environment because it helps them actually make their idea become reality. However, as I said, since we don't have that Silicon Valley system, do we need to think of entrepreneurship as necessarily a maktub or a company that has to do with technology, or can it just be simple ideas do we need that? Simple ideas that can make it and not be that tech oriented.
That, in the region, I will not talk about Gulf specifically, that making the information available through the technology, it is available. I think we we are lacking a lot in making the information available for people who are looking for opportunity in business. In the Europe, United States, and the Far East, it's different. You can look for information, you can easily access that information, you can look at a statistic. Here in the Gulf, I think without exception, and most of the Middle East, very limited information available on the internet, or even government are not releasing. I mean, you're talking about success rate of 30%, if I'm correct. I think this will scare any individual to get into business, because 7 out of 10 are losing the business. I think this is the message that makes people, well, I will go just to government job and secure my children an income.
Yeah, because people are afraid to fail, but they shouldn't.
You know, my experience that the government should take the initiative and really put the right investment and at least make the information available and the statistic available very easily, and can be accessed by students in school, and students at universities, small investors. These information are not available, and that makes the situation difficult, makes the decision making, even makes the selection of the business very difficult. I think you see it even on governmental level. Have you seen that governments are duplicating other countries' technology? Look at steel industry, for example. Everybody is building steel industries. Aluminum is the same, and that has been copied down into people. And people, they will look, if a supermarket is successful, he will make a supermarket. But he doesn't necessarily have the information that the market is in need of that business. Yes. So I think rather than talking about educating people and guiding people, I think we have to talk about making the information available. I think everybody on the floor here knows that children are accessing information more than we are, and they are more. The use of internet in the Middle East is the highest in the world, and they are better than us in using this technology. So I think the comment I want to put the floor, that we should review what information we are making available for these for future businesses. Yes. Once we develop that data and we make it available and we update it regularly and carefully, then people will be very selective, and I'm sure that lenders will look at this successful story and they will be more encouraged to lend.
Mr. Partner, sorry, just a second, because our time is running, and I had an interesting comment during the break, and I would like you to answer that question. Liam, if you can pass on the microphone to you, if you can raise your hand. It was an interesting idea, and a combination of what was said on the previous panel. We were talking about the gender divide. If you can pass on the microphone there. There's only one. Okay. So over there, second table. We were talking about the gender divide, and now we are talking about entrepreneurship. And that question was very intriguing because it was about both. Let's hear from Liam.
Hello, yeah, my name is Liam Hooley. I've set up a company called The Travel Attaché, which is a high-end luxury travel company. And this relates to the conversation before and this conversation. The previous conversation seemed to look at the larger companies and so on and so forth, and we talked about gender divides. And I had a sort of a real situation whereby I've just launched this company, I've got 5 staff, and there's this one girl woman who is exceptionally good at her job. Now, travel is all about women make the decisions generally as to where we go on holiday. The travel industry generally has a large number of women working in it. Now, I had a situation whereby this particular lady, I'd known her for a long time, she's a personal friend, and I knew she was very good at booking luxury travel. So I also knew, because she was my friend, that she was married and she wanted to have a baby in the next 6 months. She was always talking about it. She was very excited about having a child. Now, I had to make a call as a guy who's given up his job and put his own money into this business. Yes, I've got some backing and I've got some great funders and partners, and that's fantastic. But I had to make a decision. And I took her on the basis that I know that in 6 months, probably, I'm going to have to pay at least 6 weeks of her maternity pay, and I won't get any return on that. Now,
and it will affect your bottom line, basically.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the only point I was bringing up is that it's not an equal world in the basis that if there had been 2 people and there was a guy who was just as good as she was, I probably would have given the job to the guy, just because it's my first year and I can't have any fat on the business and I can't have any affecting the bottom right-hand corner of my Excel sheet.
So basically the question is, he was faced with a real-life example. He can hire either a female, he knows she's going to go for maternity, and he will book losses as a result of that the first year, or hire a man in the same job and
I did give her the job, by the way.
You gave her the job because you believed in her for the future. So, I mean, how can someone make such a call? I mean, he asked the question, and I was thinking, okay, how does one make such a call if they are an entrepreneur, they are setting up a business, just starting up the business? So, who would like to answer that question?
I want to make a comment. I don't know whether does this work?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I think that if you look carefully, that women don't change job as much as men. So there is a risk that men, and recently this is very well known in the Gulf, that men change jobs more than women. So there is a risk there, and you have to look at the other risk where the woman, if she wants to get married or to have babies, and every employee you're taking, there is no guarantee. They could go sick, they could leave the job, and in case of women, they could. But what I think in favor of women, once they take a job and they are comfortable with it, they stay.
So you are investing in the future, basically.
In investing. I mean, you have to take the constraints of this issue, but I think the continuity of women on the same job is more higher than men. I just want to make that comment.
Professor,
there's a classic example in the IT industry of how this wonderful potential workforce from the women can be tapped. The company in question is a company called SAS Institute, which is probably the world's largest statistical analysis software company, conscientiously decided to continue to be private, an extremely successful company. 98% of the Fortune 100 companies buy SAS software. Now the interesting point here is 55% of SAS workforce are women. And the founding managing directors have a vision that women are equally qualified and equally equipped to handle any kind of challenges, including technology. What they've done is a remarkable insight into the sensitivity towards the other gender. Well, yes, as we rightly debated, women have family commitments, women have commitments towards children, women have maternity challenges. But if these could be addressed in a sensible way, you could create a remarkably successful organization. And their policies, rather than saying people-friendly, they're extremely women-friendly policies. Let me give you a very interesting couple
very
of
quickly, because we have
very
to
simple example. When women come back from maternity, they have a baby care center which is right at the institute premises, and they could actually, there are no fixed times when they'll go to see their kids. They could actually view them on the webcam sitting on their tables.
So they put processes to help a female do her
Processes to
job.
ensure that you sensitize.
Let us go back finally to our, go back to the entrepreneurship topic that we were discussing, and we will take one more question from the audience. But Mr. Podner, I'd like you to tell us, because you have had that experience in financing, people who brought in ideas. And again, I would like to ask, what kind of ideas did you get? What kind of ideas were you more inclined to finance? Were they necessarily high-tech, or were they more sensible ideas? And do we have that? Were there good ideas presented there?
There have been some very good ideas that have come through us. I mean, again, going back to our sort of experience with the UAE national entrepreneur system, and it's across the board. It's not high-tech, it's not anything specific. It's quite a wide range of ideas that can mean service industry, pizza delivery, all of that stuff comes across our desks, and we look very carefully at it. Again, coming back to the structure of financing to be put in place here, it would help if we could team up, and I think we've heard about that today, teaming up with various parties within Dubai, within the UAE, or within the Gulf, to make sure all of us are helping that process somehow. Because, you know, to be very frank, our skill sets at judging whether an entrepreneur startup is going to work or not. That's not what we do. And that's a venture capital, that's private equity, whatever you want to call it. That's their role in terms of coming in and maybe starting the process, which the banks then can take forward with assistance from government, from other parties as well. I think, looking at the future, I think looking at my kids now coming out of university in the UK as an example, entrepreneurship is a big part of their potential future, because the job industries in terms of traditional jobs
are limited,
are going fast. So I think this is very important that we in the Gulf, we in Dubai, we in the UAE, wherever you want to kind of get the structure right to encourage the entrepreneurs that will come out of the network.
We'll take one final question because we didn't have a chance. Oh, we have so many hands. I need really quick answers because our time is out. Let's pass on the microphone and hear the questions.
Hold the microphone, but I don't know if I should take the question or be gentle and pass it to somebody else.
Since you have the microphone, we have to take your question.
Okay. My name is Ali Barhani. I left the corporate world and set up a strategic advisory firm 2 years ago. I was just talking to Ms. Al-Jaber in the break. I think one of the dilemmas in the region as well is that everybody wants a fancy job when we're talking about creation of jobs. But 80 million jobs have to be created between now and 2020 in the Arab world, and not all of them can be CEO-type jobs. And when we look at Germany, the backbone of German economy is Mittelstands and SMEs. Yes, Siemens is big, Bosch is big, but this happens at this much younger stage. And Bosch went, when I was a director of strategy at Bosch, by spending 60 million euros distributing kits to encourage children at the kindergarten level to find engineering interesting.
Yes.
So our programming today is not only at the university level.
It has to be at the school
level
as well.
Yes, and the other thing I wanted to say is that one of the elements in the GCC which I find personally is that we have lost touch by finding the handwork and vocational training cool. It's not looked upon favorable. The largest packaging for the palm dates of the entire Arab world takes place in Germany. The saffron of Iran is packed in Spain. So there's a lot of added value that SMEs can capitalize in different sectors and develop that niche as well.
Maybe, Ms. Hala, we need to hype a little bit the vocational training as well, maybe through reality TV shows or whatever is hip, and make it interesting for young people.
I want to make two comments. First of all, yes, our education system, specifically from kindergarten up to grade 12, we focus very tightly on academic. We do not encourage students to build relationships and build personalities. We focus on their academic achievements rather than looking at their leadership skills and building this entrepreneurial spirit within their minds. Then we graduate from school and we go into colleges that actually tells you it's all about entrepreneurship. Set up this, set up that. The Young Entrepreneurs Competition maybe help with that. And then there is the Sheikh Majid Award for Young Media Awards, for example. There are a lot of awards that are doing that, but they're tackling it right after school. The other thing is the families within the UAE and maybe the Gulf. It is okay for American children and Western children to go make lemonade and sell it at school or sell it to the neighbors or do a garage sale. In our culture, we are a little bit conserved. It's basically, we say it's a bit عيب يعني to go and sell to the neighbors or do that. That's changing. That's changing tremendously. But in the olden days, that was like, let's not do that. It's not very, very good.
It's not appropriate.
It's not appropriate. So in the schools, we need to start looking at that and encouraging children to start the entrepreneurial spirit from a very young age. In the colleges, we're doing very well, but I think we need to move away from looking at the normal ideas of selling cupcakes and designing abayas to more innovative ideas.
Yes.
We, for example, at Do, when Mohammed Saeed Harib came with the idea of Freech, had started operations in 2006, but we had not actually launched our commercial services. He came to us in 2006 and said, I've got this 3D animation program that I want to launch. And we looked at it and we said, is it a risk to invest in this guy? We don't know where this will be going. But we looked at it long term and we said, okay, if we support 3D animation today, it will create a niche market in the UAE and a lot of people will follow suit. And you know what? It happened. It was like a fever that spread to the region, and a lot of students started to adopt and go into animation industry, or creating this program and entertainment that tackles this. So I think taking a risk and believing in innovative ideas is something that companies, corporations, government also has to start doing.
Mr. Janahi.
I think we'll take in 2 points when it comes to vocational training. We used to have them here, and unfortunately the ministries just stopped it. And we see a huge lack when it comes to entrepreneurs. Even when they come and recruiting people, technical people who can support them, they are not existent, and even from the UAE nationals too. The second point was, I think...
he mentioned the vocational training and that SMEs are the school, that it has to start at school level.
Definitely at school level, but there are limitations when it comes to how much you can give that kind of information to these children. And we faced this when we started to put training programs to these young entrepreneurs that will participate in the competition. When we asked them to come and attend and do some training, they didn't want to go back to academia and again. So entrepreneurship is a very sensitive thing, and we as adults or strategic people, we should not over-engineer things. And sometimes we just need to create the space, the platform, and let it organically happen and grow.
Our time really is up, but someone has the microphone, I think. So one question very quickly.
Okay, Samir Abdelhadi, CEO of Samtec. We could have many Maktoums, but the thing is the banks has to believe in us. Did believe in us. I reached the top 10 of the entrepreneur. Dubai SME believed in us. We ranked 18 of the top 100 companies, but the banks until now, they're wearing the hat of SME, but they're not doing anything.
Can I elaborate on this, Samir? I think Samir has a beautiful product, and there is a huge gap, again, based on the study that we have done, when it comes, majority of the economy in the United Arab Emirates, and I think the whole Gulf region, is service-oriented. Yes. And for banks to evaluate services that don't really have assets, sometimes it's very difficult, and that's one of the challenges we are working with the banks to overcome, and the floor is for you.
Thank you. We meet again, I think. But it's true. I mean, I think banks are traditionally not very good at small business lending. I think, looking back at my career in the Middle East 10 years ago with HSBC, we looked at instigating a program-led based lending to SMEs, to the micro SME industries. Did it work? Probably it has done, but if you look at Emirates MBD, we now have, according to the SME 100, over 25% market share of SME business now in the UAE. Does that mean to say we're good at it? I think we're learning all the time, and I think last time I did make this comment. The banks are becoming very much more focused on SMEs because it's basically getting to a no-choice area now. Not that we don't want to, it's just that's the market out there that we need to be in. And every bank in town is focusing on the SMEs. I think the key point is that the quality of staff that they've got needs to be retrained in how to deal with smaller companies rather than the Dubai Aerospaces or that sort of level of company. But it's coming. It may not be brilliant yet, but you'll see a lot of improvement over the next 12 months. I can guarantee it.
It's a very lively discussion, and I know that you have so many questions, but I'm hoping that later on in the networking breaks, you might have a chance to discuss with our panelists. I thank you very much, all of you, for being here with us today and for taking the time. And I hope that the audience found the discussions interesting. We will be now, I will be handing over to Baxter to see what's next. Thank you very much.
Thank you.